man and his son were returning from Tim Hortons in St. Boniface when their car burst into flames.
Engine failures involving more than 1 million older Honda and Acura vehicles.
What if I told you the reliable car you just bought could turn into a financial nightmare overnight, or even burst into flames while parked in your garage? Hard to believe, right? But it's happening to millions of drivers, and not with obscure brands. I'm talking Hyundai, Toyota, even Honda. In this countdown, I'll reveal 10 cars that can wreck your insurance, drain your savings, and leave you stuck with loans on vehicles that don't even run. And trust me, the #1 car isn't just shocking, it's the biggest automotive disaster in modern history. Let's start with a problem that's been draining drivers' wallets for over 20 years, a hidden flaw that can sink a car long before its time. The Jeep 4xe Hybrids, an SUV that actually comes with a warning label. Don't park it in your garage. Sounds like a bad joke, right? But Jeep's 4xe plug-in hybrids, including the Grand Cherokee and Wrangler, have been recalled because they can spontaneously catch fire while sitting still. Over 160,000 of these hybrids were pulled back due to high-voltage battery defects. And it doesn't stop there. Earlier recalls covered tens of thousands more for the exact same issue. On top of that, the NHTSA launched an investigation into reports of sudden vehicle shutdowns while driving. Imagine merging onto a busy highway, only for your Jeep to completely power off without warning. That's not just a nuisance, that's a safety lawsuit waiting to happen. Financially, it's a nightmare too. Insurance companies are watching these fire claims closely, and some owners are already reporting higher premiums or outright red flags when trying to get coverage. And resale? Forget about it. Dealers know these Jeeps are toxic on the used market, which means trade-in values are tanking fast. But if you think that was bad, the next failure comes from a brand people used to trust without question, until it left families stranded on the side of the highway. Honda 3.5-liter V6. For years, the Honda V6 was legendary for smoothness and longevity, but between 2016 and 2020, something went terribly wrong. The 3.5-liter V6 developed a fatal flaw in its connecting rod bearings, and when they go, they don't give you a warning. One minute you're cruising with your family, the next it sounds like a blender full of marbles, and then the engine seizes completely. At first, Honda tried to downplay the issue with a small recall, but the problem was so widespread that the NHTSA expanded it to cover 1.5 million vehicles. That includes some of Honda's most popular models, the Pilot, Passport, Odyssey, and even Acura's MDX and TLX. Here's the scary part. These failures can happen at any mileage, not 150,000, not even 70,000. Owners have reported catastrophic breakdowns well within the warranty period, and some right after it expires. And when the warranty doesn't cover it, you're staring down the barrel of a $12,000 engine replacement. That's the kind of bill that wrecks savings accounts and forces families into financing traps just to stay on the road. And as shocking as that is, the next disaster didn't just hit one or two vehicles. It spread across so many models, even dealers started treating them like ticking time bombs. Chrysler/Dodge 3.6-liter Pentastar. On paper, Chrysler's 3.6-liter Pentastar looked like a winner. Plenty of power, decent fuel economy, and found in everything from the Dodge Grand Caravan to the Jeep Grand Cherokee. But those early years, especially 2011 through 2014, turned into a mechanical nightmare. The most common failure? Cylinder head defects caused by poor valve seat design. Owners would suddenly lose compression, sometimes without warning, and before long, the engine was toast. Add in weak rocker arms and serious oil consumption issues, and you've got a recipe for repair bills running $6,000 to $8,000. More than some of these vehicles were even worth used. And because this engine was stuffed into so many models, the scope of failures was massive. Families who thought they were buying a dependable minivan or SUV suddenly found themselves financing another car just to replace the one they thought would last. Even when Chrysler stepped in with extended warranties for certain models, the damage was already done. Resale values tanked, and dealers started treating these engines like ticking time bombs. When even your family van turns into a financial trap, you know something's gone seriously wrong in Detroit's engineering department. Now, that's ugly enough in a family hauler, but the next problem hits cars that look fine from the outside, yet can drain your wallet the moment you sign the loan papers. Nissan's CVT Transmissions. Imagine buying a car where the engine is fine, but the transmission dooms the whole thing. That's the story of Nissan's CVT Transmissions, which have been a nightmare for drivers since the early 2000s. These transmissions can fail as early as 40,000 miles, and when they go, you're staring at an $8,000 repair bill, more than some of the cars are even worth. The symptoms are endless: shuddering, slipping, overheating, power loss. The steel belts stretch, pulleys wear out, and valve bodies just give up. And here's the real kicker. Used car dealers often refuse to take high-mileage Nissans because they know these CVTs are ticking time bombs. Even if the rest of the car is fine, that transmission alone destroys the resale value. From a financial standpoint, it's brutal. Extended warranties become almost mandatory, and countless buyers end up upside down on loans, paying off vehicles worth less than the note because the transmission tanked their value. If you're enjoying this list so far, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because the next car flips everything you thought you knew about American trucks. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. Here's the kicker. The next entry was supposed to be a practical family crossover, but it turned out to be one of the costliest traps an unsuspecting buyer could fall into. Mazda CX7 2.3-liter turbo. Mazda usually gets credit for building sporty, fun-to-drive cars with reliable 4-cylinder engines, but the CX7 with the 2.3-liter turbo, that was a disaster waiting to happen. This engine was plagued with turbocharger failures, stretched timing chains, and oil sludge buildup that could wipe out the motor without warning. And here's the cruel twist. Even owners who followed the maintenance schedule religiously weren't always safe. If you missed just one oil change, the sludge problem could kill the engine. But even with perfect maintenance, plenty of CX7s still ended up in the shop. Repair bills often hit $5,000 to $7,000, which is insane for a vehicle that was supposed to be an affordable family crossover. And of course, many of these failures showed up right after warranties expired, leaving families stuck with the bill or fighting endless battles with dealerships. The problem got so bad that Mazda eventually killed off the entire CX7 model line, and today it's considered one of the brand's biggest embarrassments. Sure, you'll still find them on used car lots for dirt cheap, but there's a reason they're cheap. They're financial traps waiting to spring. And if that wasn't bad enough, the next story proves that even when two automotive giants team up, they can still deliver one of the biggest mechanical flops in years. Ford EcoBoost engines. The engine Ford bragged about, and then had to recall nearly 1 million of. That's the story of the 2.7-liter and 3.0-liter EcoBoost V6, a power plant that promised cutting-edge performance but ended up leaving thousands of owners stranded. The core issue? Defective intake valves that can suddenly shatter, causing catastrophic engine failure with zero warning. 1 minute you're cruising along, the next the engine is dead, and your SUV or truck is nothing more than an expensive paperweight. And this isn't Ford's first strike with EcoBoost. These engines already have a history of oil leaks, cam phaser rattles, stretched timing chains, turbocharger failures, you name it. Add the new intake valve defect on top, and it's like Ford rolled every possible engine failure into one package. Financially, it's brutal. Plenty of these engines failed just outside of warranty coverage, leaving owners staring down $7,000 to $10,000 repair bills. That's the kind of surprise expense that wrecks savings accounts and forces families into financing traps, just to get back on the road. You'd think nothing could top that, but the next engine failure turned luxury ownership into a financial nightmare worldwide. BMW N54 twin-turbo inline-6. BMW's N54 twin-turbo was hyped as the future of performance. Smooth, powerful, and tucked into cars like the 335i, 535i, and even the early 740i, it looked like a dream engine on paper. But in reality, it became one of BMW's most expensive nightmares. The list of problems is legendary. High-pressure fuel pump failures, leaking injectors, carbon buildup, weak turbochargers, and failing wastegates. Owners often had to replace the same parts multiple times. Under warranty, BMW footed the bill. Out of warranty, you were staring at $8,000 to $12,000 in repairs just to keep the car alive. Depreciation hit these models like a freight train. That shiny $50,000 335 I could lose half its value in just a few years because smart buyers knew what was lurking under the hood. Extended warranties became a must-have, and insurance companies companies started flagging them as high risk because of repair frequency and cost. The irony? Enthusiasts still love the N54 for its tuning potential. It can make crazy power, but for the average driver just wanting a reliable luxury sedan, this engine was a wallet destroyer in disguise. And as shocking as those repair bills are, the next brand's mistake is even harder to believe because it comes from a company once known as the gold standard of reliability. Toyota Tundra twin-turbo V6. Toyota, the king of reliability until this. When Toyota replaced its legendary V8 with a brand new twin-turbo V6, the move was supposed to be a leap forward in technology and fuel economy. Instead, it became the biggest recall in Toyota's history. Here's what happened. During production, metal debris was left inside the engines. That flaw caused catastrophic failures, forcing Toyota to replace engines in over 100,000 brand new trucks. Think about that. Trucks rolling straight off the assembly line with engines that were already doomed. Financially, this was a disaster. Billions in recall costs for Toyota, but also resale value shock for owners. Nobody wants to buy a truck that's tied to a recall this massive. And insurance? Premiums on recalled vehicles often creep upward because insurers know the risk of breakdown and claims is higher. What makes this so damaging is that Toyota built its empire on bulletproof engines. If even Toyota can stumble this badly, it makes drivers question whether any modern engine is truly safe. But Toyota isn't alone. The next failure was so widespread, replacement engines couldn't even keep up with demand, leaving buyers stranded for weeks at a time. Subaru 2.5-liter turbo EJ25. Subaru has a reputation for rugged all-wheel drive and winter reliability, but the 2.5-liter turbo EJ25 is the exact opposite of bulletproof. This engine became infamous for blown head gaskets, cracked ringlands, and rod-bearing failures that could kill the motor well before it ever hit 100,000 miles. Add in constant oil consumption problems and turbocharger failures, and you've got an engine that was both expensive to own and nearly impossible to sell with confidence. Repair costs? Easily $6,000 to $9,000, depending on whether you're doing a rebuild or replacing the engine entirely. And because this motor was used in popular models like the WRX, Forester XT, and Legacy GT, plenty of families and enthusiasts ended up learning this lesson the hard way. From a financial perspective, it was a disaster. Insurance companies flagged these engines as high risk. Resale values cratered, and buyers who financed them often ended up upside down on loans when the engine failed. Subaru's newer engines have improved, but the EJ25 Turbo still stands as one of the most notorious failures in Subaru's history. And if you thought that was the worst it gets, think again, because the final entry isn't just another bad engine. It's been called the single biggest automotive disaster in modern history. Hyundai/Kia Theta II engines. The single worst engine disaster in modern history. That's not an exaggeration. That's the legacy of Hyundai and Kia's Theta II 4-cylinder engines, built between 2012 and 2023. The failures are endless. Rod bearings disintegrating, cracked piston rings, blown head gaskets, and spontaneous oil fires. Some of these engines literally went up in flames while parked in driveways. Over the years, there have been more than 50 separate recalls, and even now in 2025, new recalls are still being added. Financially, this is devastating for owners. A failed engine often costs $8,000 to $15,000 to replace, and many of these cars give out before 100,000 miles, with some seizing at just 60,000. Even worse, countless owners who followed every maintenance schedule by the book still watched their engines destroy themselves. Imagine doing everything right, only to have your car die, and then being told the warranty won't cover it. This crisis has sparked class action lawsuits, a $200 million fine from regulators, and a tidal wave of warranty battles. Meanwhile, dealerships and junkyards are flooded with dead Hyundais and Kias, while families are left making monthly payments on vehicles that no longer run. That's the definition of a financing trap. It's more than just a mechanical failure, it's a betrayal. Loyal owners who trusted Hyundai and Kia were left stranded, out thousands of dollars, and in many cases stuck with worthless vehicles. So there you have it, some of the worst engines and transmissions ever put on the road. They prove one thing: shiny tech and big promises don't always mean long-term reliability. Sometimes the smartest money isn't on the newest model, but on proven vehicles that have stood the test of time. Have you ever owned one of these disasters, or barely dodged buying one? Drop your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone shopping for their next car. It might just save them from a very expensive mistake.